So we all know Cooper Rush and Noah Brown was an improbable duo to lead the Cowboys to victory. But tonight we'll dive into just how improbable it actually was. And we'll actually look at a number that makes it seem even more unlikely than we all thought originally. So we'll jump into that. We will also take a look at one unheralded hero on the Cowboys offensive line. We'll take a look at the entire unit. And towards the end of the show, we'll discuss the latest updates on Michael Gallup's injury, on Dak Prescott's timetable, and much more that we heard around the NFL and around the NFC East. Because you might have heard the Commanders got an early W versus the Cowboys. You know, you hate to see it, but it's the truth. And the New York Giants signed a very, very familiar face. So welcome everyone into the show. Thank you for joining me and Primetime. Do me a favor, and as you join the stream, hit the like button. Share the stream. If you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, let your friends know about Primetime. Every like puts this show in front of more Cowboys fans. It takes about 1 second to hit that thumbs up. So do me a favor and do that. And let me shout out some people here in the YouTube chat and the Facebook chat. We've got Bruce saying, just for one night, Skull, right? Cowboys fans probably rooting against the Philadelphia Eagles. Not going great right now. I think that's 14-7 right now, according to Bruce as well. We've got Hardison on YouTube. We've got Gregory, Chalk. Who else do we have here? Kenneth Fraser over at Facebook. I am watching the Eagles dominate the Vikings. I stopped watching the game when Jalen Hurts was 10 for 10, and I'm sure that I will catch the replay later tonight, but I'm focusing on the Bills-Titans game right now. That's the one that I was the most intrigued by this Monday night, but we'll see what happens later. And yeah, I agree with Cowboys fans rooting for the Vikings. It's going to be tough winning the division, and every Eagles loss would definitely help out a lot. I agree with that. But anyways, let's start the show officially. Now that more of us are here, we'll get into all of these topics and much more. So without any further ado, here we go. What is up, everyone? Welcome to ADC Sports Dallas Primetime. I am your host, Mauricio Rodriguez, streaming with you live every Sunday through Thursday night at 8 p.m. Central here on Dallas On Demand Sports Talk Network, with a lot more content coming your way. Make sure that you check out adcsports.com/Dallas. And of course, Primetime, as always, is brought to you by our friends over at freemanmazda.net. Make sure you check them out, and we'll talk about the ride of the week in a few moments here. But before we do any of that, let's talk about the Cowboys' improbable duo from Sunday, because, man, that was something. Cooper Rush, Noah Brown, leading the Cowboys to victory, and of course, they did so alongside a stellar defensive performance. But let's give Cooper Rush and Noah Brown some love here. Drop one emoji to describe the Rush Brown emoji. Oh, that I mistyped that, a comment for sure. Drop one emoji to describe the Rush Brown duo on Sunday, because chances are, if you have followed the Dallas Cowboys for a while now, I think you kind of realize just how improbable that duo was. But when you dig deeper and when you start looking up the details or remembering the details of this connection, it gets even crazier. And I wrote an article late last night on this duo for adcsports.com, and it kind of, dawned on me how unlikely this was to happen from the start. We're talking about a 7th-round wide receiver. We're talking about an undrafted quarterback from the same year, and that year is 2017. What does that mean? Not only was that 6 years ago, so this is the 6th year in the NFL from each of these players. Number one, they're still on the team. Of course, Cooper Rush had that brief moment in which he wasn't, but he's been pretty much in Dallas since 2017, almost uninterrupted. Both are on the same team that originally gave them a chance. Both have survived a change at head coach, a change at offensive coordinator. And it's crazy to think that. It's crazy to think that they are still on the team in the first place, even more so to see them lead the Cowboys to a victory, right? In week 2 of the 2022 regular season. But it gets even crazier. And this is where I will give my answer for the emoji question, because I said drop one emoji to describe the Rush Brown connection. And Gregory went with the star, Kenneth Fraser with the black heart, the not so toxic Joey Vela went with the icy emoji. This is the one that I was going to use, the same one that Bruce used. Mind blown. And here's why. We already talked about the backstory, which is clear for everyone. You know, odds in the NFL would say that none of them would be in the team in the first place, just based on the fact that they were one is a 7th rounder, the other one is an undrafted free agent, 6 years into their career, and they're still with the Cowboys. How about this? They connected for 5 receptions in 5 targets, 91 yards, 1 touchdown. 3 of the longest plays by the Cowboys involved Noah Brown. One of the receptions came 4th and 2 for Dallas in the opening drive of the game. The other one was the catch that basically set up Brett Maher for a 50-yard field goal. And all of that happened with the lowest average receiver separation in the entire game. Because if you look at the numbers from Next Gen Stats, the league average is 2.91 yards receiver separation. Noah Brown was at 1.92. If you exclude Dennis Houston, the undrafted receiver that was targeted only once, and that's the reason why I would exclude him from the conversation, Noah Brown had the lowest average separation on game day, including Bengals receivers. So Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, all of them, CeeDee Lamb, Dalton Schultz, everyone had a lower average receiver separation, or a higher, than Noah Brown. And Brown still had those 5 catches in those 5 targets for 91 yards and 1 touchdown. That's why I'm going with the mind-blown emoji. I thought that when digging deeper into that connection, you kind of discovered just how unlikely it was in the first place. And by the way, this probably brings up a conversation as well, that the Cowboys didn't look great in terms of separation, according to Next Gen Stats. And of course, I'm guessing tomorrow is the day that I will get to dive into the tape, and we'll definitely look into this. But the league average separation is 2.91, and every receiver on the Cowboys, according to Next Gen Stats, was below that mark. We'll see. And they only measured wide receivers and tight ends, just to be clear. And I would assume that happens because check downs and flat routes and all of these short routes by running backs would kind of not be as accurate reflections of what's going on in the playing field. But maybe that's just a sign of concern. I know we're keeping it positive here, talking about Cooper Rush and Noah Brown and how amazing that game was, but still something to look at closer throughout the week is how little separation the Cowboys receivers got on game day. Because if you look at the Bengals numbers, they looked better. And actually, I don't have them load up for you, but Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and I believe Tyler Boyd was also close to being above average in that department. Of course, that's one of the best skill position groups in the entire NFL. So pretty big that Michael Gallup could be back next weekend, as we will probably, well, not weekend because the Cowboys do play on Monday night. We'll talk more about that later. But shout out to Noah Brown and Cooper Rush. We know that was unlikely, but looking into the numbers, you'll find out that it was even more improbable. So let me see some of your comments here on the show. And by the way, do me a favor, hit the like button. Let's get this show in front of more Cowboys fans. That's what happens with every thumbs up from you. Let's see. Nicholas says, Cooper Rush goes through his reads much faster than Dak, but not as accurate. He got lucky on a couple of drops by the defense. I don't know about that. I will give credit to Cooper Rush. I don't know that I would compare him to Dak Prescott going through his reads, but I will say this: Cooper Rush in full control of this offense. Watching the replay confirmed what we talked about very briefly last night. Cooper Rush was having team meetings at the line of scrimmage with his offense. He was adjusting the plays consistently. He was adjusting pass protection. He was adjusting the routes. He was doing a little bit of everything. It was not only limited to Cooper Rush getting up to the line of scrimmage and saying, kill, kill. That was not it. He was doing much more. And I think that evidence of that comes fairly quickly on the replay when you look at that 4th and 2 play. Cooper Rush holds a full team meeting in there just to get the Cowboys offense lined up right in order to move the chains. And of course, he finds Noah Brown in that exact same play. So that was definitely something to watch. Let's see. If you combined Rush and Dak together, we would actually have a complete quarterback, says Nicholas. I do like Dak, of course. I do think he's a complete quarterback. Cooper, says William Anthony, had a good first half and got a win. Let's pump the brakes. And here's the thing. I'm guessing William says this as a response to the Dak Prescott thing, and I would agree on that. But I will say, you got to get excited about what happened with Cooper Rush. Because even if it's just one win, like, we got to be aware that that's still a lot for a backup quarterback in the NFL. And the fact that it looks like Cooper Rush gives Dallas a chance in the upcoming games is a lot by itself already. The offensive line played very good, says Mark Aaron. And man, this is the perfect transition to what we're about to talk about next, or what. Thank you to Mark Aaron. Thank you for tuning in. 7-Eleven says, Jalen Smith is signing back with the Giants. We'll talk about that later on the show as well. Not much to say other than that. Probably he's back in a Cowboys game, but he will be a New York Giant once more. Hopefully he doesn't high-five Cowboy players so we don't get that ridiculous storyline going up again on Twitter. So we'll see what happens there. But let's talk about the offensive line. We had a brief discussion about it last night. I wanted to dive deeper into it because we went ahead and we got some numbers. Because as you guys know, if you have watched Primetime since week 1, I'm pretty excited about what Tyler Biadasz has shown the Dallas Cowboys early in the season. Tyler Biadasz has been one of the biggest reasons why this offensive line looks successful. And I love that Tony Romo quote on the actual game broadcast for CVS. Tony Romo, in the opening drive of the game, actually praised the Cowboys offensive line. The same unit that we've been concerned about since the offseason, and rightfully so. I'm not saying the contrary. But Tony Romo did praise the unit, and I think he has a great point. He said that even though the Cowboys need to improve against the pass, that this is looking like a very physical offensive line that can maybe get the job done. This is the exact quote from Tony Romo. I was actually more impressed watching the tape at the physicalness of this offensive line. They really did get their hands in and pushed basically straight forward. He's talking about Ezekiel Elliott here and getting those downfield runs versus the Bucs. And he followed it up by saying this is a physical offensive line, even though they've got to improve in the pass game. And do you know one of the biggest reasons why they've been physical, why they've been playing well? That's Tyler Biadasz at center. Keep in mind, your center is the guy that dictates how you do in those slide protections when you're sending help to the left side, when you're sending some help to Matt Farniok, to Tyler Smith. Tyler Biadasz has been a huge part of that. According to Pro Football Focus, he allowed 0 pressures versus the Bengals on Sunday. He had the highest pass block grade in the Cowboys for Pro Football Focus. And then he's actually ranked as the 4th best center in run block win rate by ESPN. Tyler Biadasz is having himself a fine start to the season. Last night, I talked about that Tony Pollard pass, which it was basically a pass, by the way, for those of you who were not aware of that. It looks like a run. The play is designed like a run. It probably was supposed to be a run. But since the ball was going forward, Cooper Rush actually got credited with that 46 or 47-yard play to Tony Pollard, which was something interesting and noteworthy. At the time, I definitely thought it was a run. Looking at the replay, that looks like some run blocking going on in the trenches. And even Tyler Viadish pulls from the center, goes all the way to the sideline, blocks the defensive back, and opens up the running lane for Tony Pollard to almost take it to the house. Viadish needs to get some respect. He needs to get some credit. And we're giving him that credit. Now, my question from me to you is, and before I actually give you the question, let me bring up this graphic. Because not everything is good for the Cowboys offensive line. And I am legitimately concerned about it right now. I am quite confident in what we've seen from Tyler Smith so far. I've been pleasantly surprised about it. I'm excited about Tyler Viadish. I've also been satisfied with what's been going on at right tackle with Terrence Steele. Matt Farniok, though, continues to struggle, in my opinion. He allowed 6 pressures in week 1, and he allowed another 6 pressures in week 2 versus the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, to be fair, he's been up against some killer defensive tackles, Vita Vea, Akeem Hicks. This time it was DJ Reader. That guy is no joke. But still, Matt Farniok has allowed 12 pressures, while the other 4 Cowboys, and that's excluding Connor McGovern. So we're talking about 4 guys that have played significantly more than Matt Farniok. The other 4 combined sit at 9 pressures allowed. Matt Farniok has 12 all by himself. And the question for me to you is, should the Cowboys stick with the current lineup or insert Jason Peters? I know it's not the first time that I bring up this question, but we've got 2 weeks worth of Matt Farniok tape, and I think it's worth bringing it up again. Now, while you give me your answers, and before I give you mine, let me talk to you about our friends over at FreemanMazda.net, because the ride of the week is the new 2022 Mazda M5 Miata Sport. It starts at $29,560. This is a fine vehicle that also has Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, a convertible roof, blind spot monitor, lane departure warning, which is key for your safety, and a miles per gallon capacity of 20 in the city. That goes up to 26 in the highway. Mazda's sport car is really a fine vehicle. So make sure you check that out. That's the Mazda M5 Miata Sport. Make sure you check that out over at FreemanMazda.net, because when you choose Freeman Mazda, you're choosing a lifelong partnership with your car dealer. Check out the pictures and the services of a family-owned business for over 65 years on FreemanMazda.net. So should the Cowboys stick with this lineup, or should they insert Jason Peters in there, get Tyler Smith at left guard, or what should you do? I am torn when it comes to this question. William says Farniok struggles with bull rush and stunts. And I would argue with more stuff as well. Even when the Cowboys were running outside zone, Farniok at times looked uncomfortable there, in my opinion. Bruce says Farniok is the reason Tyler will be moved back to guard when Peters is ready. Because even though, as King Element is pointing out in the show, isn't Connor McGovern coming back this week? If he's not, then go with Peters at left tackle. I don't think that we know what will happen with Connor McGovern. They said 2 to 4 weeks, if I remember correctly. They did not place him on injured reserve, which is noteworthy. But even if it's Connor McGovern, are we already comfortable with Connor McGovern? I know I'm not. Oh, that's a tough pick for the Titans, man. That's a tough pick for the Titans. and Titans plus 10 bettors. I don't know who would take Titans plus 10 on Monday Night Football when they're facing the Buffalo Bills. I really don't. And for the podcast audience, I promise that I am not repeatedly pointing two fingers at me. I don't know who would bet Titans plus 10. That's just something that's dumb to do. But anyways, back to the show. I'm not even that comfortable on Connor McGovern at left guard. So if it was up to me, I would just roll out Jason Peters to the left, to the outside at left tackle, and I would play Tyler Smith inside. That would be my take. Let's see what you guys have to say, though. Nope, Peters outside, Smith inside, says Parsons 7-11. William Anthony also says, let's insert Jason Peters. Gregory says Peters. Kenneth Fraser, though, wants to stick with it. He says, screw it. Let's get Tyler at left tackle. Who else? Who else chimed in here? Let's see. Cam Smith says, what I don't get is y'all saying the Cowboys will lose. The hell with you, little boy. Shout out to Cammy. Don't take it personally. We just do objective analysis here on ADC Sports Dallas. Hope that you enjoy. And if you don't enjoy analysis, then maybe this ain't the show. King Element says, yeah, to be honest, let's get the best 5 out there and bring in Peters. Mark Aaron says I would keep Smith at left tackle, Peters at guard. That's something that I think it's not in play. Although I like the creativity, Mark, and I wouldn't fully oppose it if Jason Peters was not 40 years old. I think that at 40 years old, it's tough to ask that of Jason Peters. Not only that, I think that if you are Jason Peters, you say, yeah, that's not happening. You're not making that position switch at 40 years old. I don't even think that Jason Peters was a real possibility when Jerry Jones talked about him playing right tackle last week when the sky was falling and the Cowboys were already done and eliminated from the playoffs. That turned into a conversation. I think that was never a possibility. So I think it's either Jason Peters at left tackle or he's a swing tackle. And if he is indeed a swing tackle, maybe you could get him on the right side if it's needed at some point. I would go with the best 5. Shout out to Tonio Thomas representing the Saints fan base. I appreciate you. Thank you for joining the show. Giants are 2-0. What the hell, says Joel Wilson. Yeah, man, the Giants are 2-0. They started the season versus the Tennessee Titans. They were close to losing that one. Ryan Dable went for it for the 2-point conversion. So the score was 20-19 after the touchdown. They went for 2 with about a little bit more than 1 minute remaining on the clock. This is in week 1. They score on the 2-point conversion. So you got to give props to Ryan Dable because that was a gutsy call from the new head coach over there in New York. And then the Titans start driving downfield. Ryan Tannehill, ice in his veins, gets the Titans in position for the field goal. Would have been the game-winning field goal, and they missed that kick. It happens. And then week 2, they beat the Carolina Panthers. I would say, and we'll dive into this later in the week, and we'll try to break it down. But they did impress with some heavy DB blitz packages. So they were sending the blitzes versus the Carolina Panthers, and they succeeded in that. So I would assume that they're also planning to send some pressures towards Cooper Rush and company. But the tape will be fun this week, I believe. Both the Cowboys tape and the Giants tape. Daniel Jones, though, doesn't look that comfortable out there yet. So the Cowboys do have a chance. We'll talk more about it tomorrow night for sure. Joel says, we almost blew that Titans game. Our defense is great. We need to keep the offense on the field, hit the clock. William says the Titans blew that game. And pretty much I agree because that was a field goal that he needed to make. I think that was a 47-yarder for Randy Bullock, and he didn't make it. It's the Panthers, is William. In week 2, it was the Panthers. Yeah. Mo, 40 is the new 20. So 7-11 in defense of Jason Peters. I mean, I'll tell you what, though, even though 40 is not the new 20, I will tell you what, Jason Peters looked well at 39 years old. There's a reason that's what you're hearing, and you're not hearing, ooh, Jason Peters sucked in run blocking last year. You're not hearing that. You're just hearing he's 40 years old. There's a reason why that's the case and why you're not hearing actual takes on how the guy is playing. Eagles looking good tonight, says Mark. Yep. Jalen Hurts looking good, to be honest. Anyways, moving on. Some quick updates around the Cowboys and around the division. The Cowboys might get Michael Gallup back in week 3, according to Stephen Jones, who was on 105.3 the radio. In case you missed that, he said that week 3 is in play for Michael Gallup. Not for Dak Prescott, though, even though that could happen in week 4 versus the Commanders or week 5 versus the LA Rams. Obviously, that would be huge for Dallas, especially if you can get one more win in the following 2 games. Like going 1-1 versus the Commanders and the Giants, vice versa, because the Giants go first, that would be huge for Dallas. They're underdogs, by the way, heading into next week's game. There's that. No more updates on Micah Parsons and Dalton Schultz, although Stephen Jones did say that Dalton Schultz probably was the one that had raised some question marks. So stay tuned on that. Pro Football Doc did say that it could be a 2 to 4 injury because according to Pro Football Doc's analysis, it's a similar injury to the one suffered by Ezekiel Elliott last year. Now, keep in mind, Pro Football Doc is not a reporter. He just goes by video and reaches his own conclusion based on his experience as an NFL doctor. But still, he is pretty accurate to be just based on video. So that could very well be the case for Dalton Schultz. And it fits the storyline put out there by several reporters like Michael Gallup from Dallas Morning News, who indicated that he could be out, but not an extended period of time. Still, for a Cowboys offense that right now only has CeeDee Lamb, losing Dalton Schultz for just 1 game is a huge blow to the offense. And maybe it kind of forces the Cowboys to maybe rush Michael Gallup back. We'll see. I don't think they will really force him back. I just think if he's ready to go, he will play, period. Right? Now, some other updates. The Cowboys lost John Ridgeway. Oh, man, that one hurt. I won't panic about it because, of course, Ridgeway was being a healthy scratch for the Cowboys, and I don't blame Dallas for waiving him in order to make room for the quarterbacks and the additional offensive linemen after injuries, so on and so on. It made sense waiving John Ridgeway. The hope, of course, was for him to claim waivers and then re-sign him to the practice squad, which didn't happen because it was the Washington Commanders who ended up claiming the former 5th-round pick, the 2022 5th-round pick, and now he will play for the Commanders. Nose tackle that was seemingly competing for the nose tackle role with Quinton Vahana. If we're being real, didn't look like much of a battle once we got into training camp because Big Bo was getting the vast majority of the snaps. I think the Cowboys will just keep an eye out on John Ridgeway. You know, he's one of those players that might be back over the next year or so. That could very well happen, but still maybe a tough blow for the Cowboys if the worst scenario takes place and at some point maybe Quinton Vahana goes down, right? And I mean this in the sense that the Cowboys don't have another true nose tackle. They have some big guys that they can play at one technique, but Big Bo is the guy that's dominating the one technique / nose tackle spot on the Cowboys defense. You got to give it to the Commanders. That was a nice claim from them. And it also goes to tell you why the Cowboys decided to keep him on the 53-man roster over maybe a Carlos Watkins or somebody like that. The Cowboys wanted to protect him, and he did get claimed. That hurts, says William Anthony, but I was looking for him to be here for next season, says William Anthony. And that's definitely in play. A lot of these players that get claimed and, they go from a practice squad to a roster and then they're cut a few weeks later. That always happens. So I think this is not the definitive end of the road for John Ridgeway in Dallas. The Cowboys could very well look for him next year or even later in 2022. That's not something that I would be super worried about, honestly. Kind of sucks. Gotta give it to the Commanders, but definitely not worth panicking over, in my opinion, or anything like that. 34-7, the Titans are losing to the Bills. 34-7. That's a crazy scoreboard. I thought that the Titans were going to be able to make the clock bleed a little bit with Derrick Henry. Evidently, that didn't happen. Somebody asked about Michael Parsons. David over at Facebook. Thank you for joining the show, David. He said, did they say anything about Parsons being injured? He just said, so they asked him about Parsons and Dalton Schultz, and he said that they were not worried about it. And then he added, we're worried about Dalton Schultz. He said something along the lines of, Dalton Schultz is the guy that's a question mark. Apparently not Parsons, which would be a huge dodge by the Cowboys if Parsons is intact. Hopefully he is. Of course, we know that he continued playing just like Dalton Schultz did. Looked like an ankle sort of injury. But yeah, it doesn't sound like it will be anything serious for Micah unless we get a report later in the week, which is always a possibility. And definitely one player to watch. Oh, man, I just read the scoreboard, and then they threw a pick six in that game. 41-7. This Bills team is real, man. They really are. I don't know why I took the 10 points. And I do know why. Didn't play out for me. Anyways, 41-7 now, says Mark. There you go. Kenneth says, I thought that the Titans would do better than they're doing. Seriously. Me too, man. Not because they were close to the Bills level. I don't think that was it. I just thought that the style of play for the Titans would make this a low-scoring affair over there on Monday night. Anyways, Gregory says, what happens when or if Bo gets hurt? You maybe get Carlos Watkins in there. He did play as a one technique for the Cowboys defense before, so that could be the instant answer that I could get you. I think that Carlos Watkins is seen very positively by this team. We'll see what happens there. But anyways, thank you for joining the show. That will be it for me tonight. Tommy 915, shout out to you. Thank you for joining the show. Hang it up, Tennessee, says Bruce. People are making fun of Joey Vela for his new username, the not so toxic Jose Lupe Vela. Brian says Vikings defense stinks. Yeah, Brian, we wanted a better performance from the Vikings. Gotta give it to the Eagles, though, as well. I just got here, Moses, Tommy 915. Sorry, man. You can catch the replay for sure. Kenneth, thank you. Thank you to you, William. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Do me a favor, though, and hit the like button before you go. Every like puts this show in front of more Cowboys fans. And remember, Prime Time brought to you by our friends over at Freeman Mazda. Check out the ride of the week on their website and everything that they have to offer you. FreemanMazda.net. Thank you, guys. I will see you tomorrow night. And adios. Hasta mañana.